Hello and welcome. So this is the hammer build for the Paladin. It's pretty straightforward. Gear-wise does matter, unfortunately. Something I want to point out is I do have two Oracle's Wrath. It's because I'm playing duo with a friend. So since they updated the game with the instance loot, you can get two of the same, one each, and then you hand over the drop to your friend, and you get a little bit more stats increase. If you're playing solo, it might be a little bit more difficult to reach these stats yourself, but it's probably doable by getting these RNG pieces that could eventually give you better stats as well. Um, for example, I'm not going to be using Lightning Ball. I'm just using the Oracle's Wrath for the 50 mana and for the 25% more increased damage on the lightning damage. Since I have two of them, I'm going to get 100 MP and then I have 50% lightning damage. So it is beneficial for group play, but it's also doable on a solo gameplay. Now for the headpiece, we are using the Phantom Veil, which is a boss drop. Probably won't mention too much about it. I don't want to avoid spoilers, but it is a boss drop. There are uniques that are from bosses. Same thing with Oracle's Wrath, uh, Barrington's Throwing Star, for example, and other stuff. Some may be, just drops itself from the purple chests that you can find, or some might be from I don't know. It's my first time going through the game, so I don't write all things down for the drops I get. But most of them have been boss drops, and some of them have been from chests. I still use adept items, but these are because of the stats that I kind of enjoy. For example, spell cast speed, and obviously the spell cost reduction, and so on. Weapon, I just got this recently from the store. Gives me Righteous Hammer increased damage. This is our main skill, our main attack. We skip the auto swing or mace swing. So the hammer is basically what I'm focusing on. I got it recently, but I had for the longest time the adept weapon, which was a battle banner mana cost reduction, and this is just a filler. Obviously, once you get better stats, well, as long as you get something with Righteous Hammer, keep them, even if it's a low level weapon. The skill that you're using is based off your spell, and it does not matter with your main hand weapon. I don't think it would say that. For example, on Mace Swing, it says main hand damage, while on Righteous Hammer, it's just a damage based off your physical damage. But that's not the main focus here, because it's the Hammer of Wrath, which is the lightning one, and I believe it's scaled off, like it says here, lightning damage, and I believe magical damage is probably gonna be scaled off on intelligence, at least from the fire swing. It says it scales off on intelligence. I would assume it scales off on the lightning as well. So this is why we are going with the intelligence on the paladin. Now the paladin has pretty good skills to survive. You don't really need to rely on strength. The only reason you use strength is because you want to wear your class gear, I would say. You're a paladin, you wear plate armor. You can go for robes and such, but you won't have enough total armor, in my opinion. So even if you go with the strength gear, I know you're spending a little bit less on the intelligence to have mana. You kind of want to balance eventually with health and MP. And in this case, I spent enough strength so I can equip my gear. Some of them doesn't require strength. This one requires 30, this one is 35, and that's about it. I used to wear the Hardnoggin helmet before Phantom Veil, and that required me 30 strength. So 30 strength would be enough. The reason why I have more is because of I overspent a little bit before doing the the build. I can't bother to do the reset, but you also get it from towering strength later on. So having towering strength with the increased or passive with the strength nets you 30 strength, which should be enough to wear most of the gear. But before that, put as much strength for your own needs, for health wise, and obviously for the gear requirements. And then later on, just focus on intelligence for the uptime on the so you don't lose out on your mana basically when you're spamming your hammer, which I'll showcase later. Total armor 64.79% by having 184 armor, and the reason for me having that high armor is because I'm gonna be rushing in on enemies and throwing hammers. I'm not gonna range. The only reason you range is if you're insecure and if you're fighting bosses, but when you're clearing trash mobs, etc., you're gonna spam your dash, and I'll go on with that in a bit because we are going based off the armor. So you're super tanky, but you're also doing damage due to the armor, and you also scale armor with intelligence, and as well with the righteous hammer. So as you can see, we don't go for any attack speed. The reason why I don't go for attack speed is because we're using a spell. A spell is obviously a casting thing, and the reason I figured it out is because I read the skills later on regarding a specific skill or trait that increases your righteous hammer and increases its cast speed and not attack speed. So any other passives or skills that you see that has attack speed, it's just based off your main, I guess the mace swing. And since we rarely use the mace swing anymore and we're just spamming hammers, we're going for cast speed only. Now physical damage, it might have an impact on the hammer that you throw, because it is based off the physical if you don't have the trait, and then later on it becomes lightning along with it. So I wouldn't focus too much on the physical damage unless you're obviously playing at the very beginning. Just go with whatever you have, as long as you feel like you're strong enough to one shot or two shots enemies with your righteous hammer. Stick with this stat, and then later on swap over to the lightning, so you have more dot damage as well, because it ticks when you have the lightning. Now for the casting part, try to get as much casting speed. This will help you tremendously without having the buffs that you'll have later on when you're on the master level. Try to aim for critical hit chance and critical hit damage as well, but most important one is the cast speed if you want to be throwing really quick and obviously be able to throw multiple hammers without waiting. You'll see in a bit. Armor penetration, it doesn't really matter that much. Lightning resistance penetration, sure, but don't focus too much on that. Your main focus is to just chuck in as many hammers as you can without going out of mana, but also to, just clear out everything that's in front of you. Now, as you can see, I have 150% lightning damage. The source is from the Oracle's Wrath. That's 25 plus 25, that's 50%. You start off with 100, as you can see from everything else, so I have 150% damage. You could have 200, I believe, if you're playing in a full group, but I'm playing duo, so I'm only getting 150. Trio, you get 175, and then 4 people, you get 200% if you sock it, or if you equip 4 of them. Most of the stats, intelligence, dexterity, didn't touch due to the gear has some stamina or dexterity. So if you see my stats being high on other stats, it's because of gear, but I've mainly spent intelligence and roughly 10 or maybe 20-ish on strength, maybe even 30. I can't really remember. Roughly 30. I'm mostly focused on obviously looking at this instead. I want to have high mana regen. I want to have high mana pool. You want to have a decent amount of health because you are going to be face stomping and face rolling on enemies. Stamina doesn't matter. I will talk about that later. Armor is really important because you don't want to get squishy and get too tapped while you're rushing in towards enemies. And movement speed shouldn't matter too much because you'll get it later on. Now, for skill, shield charge, you won't be maxing this out. You will have this at 1 for the longest time. You're gonna feel slow and sluggish. You can adapt and go with whatever you feel like to have more dashes. I can see this being quite important later on, or for serious difficulty. The second part with the trait, Armored Assault, you max this one out. So as I said earlier, you want to scale this dash because the dash does damage as well when you spec into this. Not only are you chucking hammers, but you're also dashing in towards enemies. You'll be doing damage based off your armor, and due to us having 184 armor, it's gonna be doing 2 damage per armor. So 180, what was it? 184 times 2. That's the amount of damage I do per charge. That's almost as having when you unlock Pillar of Light, you're doing 150 damage, right? But now you're doing 2 times of your total armor. 2 times of your total armor, you're doing straight out every 1 second instead of waiting on a 15-second cooldown of the Pillar of Light, which only does 150 at level 1. So it's kind of worth it when you have the gear later on. Stamina is not going to be an issue. We'll go on with that later. We're going to go there soon on the adept tree. But yes, this is free damage, 300 damage if you have high armor. Just charge out enemies. And then obviously having this skill, it's not going to be helpful at the beginning because you do want to stun the enemies and be able to mace swing the enemies. But this one is super important later on when you have tons of enemies and you just dashes through the enemies, doing 300 plus damage on every single enemy on 1 second cooldown. So this is really good. Don't sleep on this, but it's not something you would max out immediately. Mace swing, ignore this. You won't be doing much of this at all. Your main damage doesn't come from here. It sounds nice to have stun and such. You can spec in, spec out if you feel like you have the money and spare to re-roll or reset your build. I've done it plenty times. I just felt like it wasn't enough. It might be good early on when you can't spam your Righteous Hammer. I would definitely then focus on Mace Swing, include with the Flames of Devotion when you unlock the Expert. So you can begin to start with the Intelligence build. This will be based off fire then. If you have fire percentage stats, stick on with that and you will be able to do more damage with this. For the build itself, we never block. The only time you block, it's a little bit scuffed at the moment. You can still block when you're having 0 stamina. So there's no reason to spend on any of these. The only thing I can think of is the movement speed might be an issue later on because you have gear like this that slows your movement speed or your movement by 100%, which means you are a stationary target. You can't move with your character. Thus, having this will obviously remove a percentage of that and will be able to move a bit while you're blocking. But I still find it just pretty useless. You barely block. You dodge, you attack, you heal, you're the support. And you can block for your teammates, obviously, but everyone can move their character, so there's no reason for you to block for others. The only time you would do wanna block, you won't be moving as well unless you really want to move and dodge while you're resting a friend. But other than that, you can just block and rest your friend at the same time. You won't die because you have high health, you have high armor, and so on. Resistance, not needed. It's something you can get from gear. You don't need to block in this game, in my opinion at least. so there's no reason for this. The elemental comes in later in the game, so you won't notice anything early on. And then the reflect, or should I say the thorns, not useful at all. Maybe in another build, but right now, for this build, no. Righteous Hammer, our main build. You have it automatically as level 1, keep it at level 1 because it's gonna cost you too much when you spam this. It is on a 1-second cooldown combined with the shield charge when you max that one out. This one will do enough damage in my opinion, because when you unlock the Hammer of Wrath on the Adept, you'll be able to throw lightning damage, which hits multiple enemies. It's your AoE clearer, it's your main DPS skill. It's gonna cost you a bit when you spec into it, so keeping it level 1 is enough in my opinion. You can spend on your points on so many other things, because level 1 is just enough in my opinion. Hammer of Devotion, later on it will return to you, more damage, easy pick. For the Adept tree, Lay on Hands level 1 at least, so you have a healing skill for yourself when you don't have a pot ready, or for your group, you need to heal other people. Do keep in mind that you want to be based off half of your health or half of roughly your friend's health when you do this, because you don't heal people to full health. You always heal them when they're at 50% health, or when they're like, you don't basically heal them for full health. So every time you're seeing them at 50% health, you spend the healing spell, right? You're gonna heal 50% of what they lost. So keep on half of the max health on yourself first, in my opinion. And due to me being at 449 health, I find myself using it at level 3 is enough, because I always take damage. I notice, oh, I'm about to die. I'm healing 50% of my health that I lost, and I'm back to full health. So there's no reason to max this one out. Just go with whatever that you have as a max health on your party or on yourself. Now, Lay on Hands with the Invigorating Touch. Not something you would need to max out immediately either. Level 1 is enough. At the start, you want to have this for the regen stats. Now, regen stats means it's for your HP regen, it's for your mana regen, and it's for your stamina regen. So this is helpful for every classes that uses, that people that has lost their health, people are low on MP, or people are low on the stamina because they've been dodging or using the skills as a different class. So maxing this one out will be helpful for them for 4 seconds on top of healing on someone else. Cleansing Dodge is negligible. You won't be dealing with the dots anymore later on, and well, you still get a lot of dots on you, but you're going to be dodging, and your heals is going to be overlapping on, it's going to be pointless to remove the negative status. Lay on Hands with the Turn Undead. It's really nice. I wish it was just, this was removed and this was just added on Lay on Hands, but having it as a extra perk or trait, or should I say spell upgrade as it says here, it's not really worth the points. You're limited on your points. It's not worth it. You're gonna be killing things with your hammer of, your Righteous Hammer, or have someone else kill. Your Lay on Hands is mostly used for emergency, heal yourself, recovery, the regen. So there's no point. Judgment, ignore the skill. I don't see. I tried it so many times and I just don't like having a skill that's in front of my character, where I can't aim or shoot out for a longer distance. Cool skill, but I wouldn't be using it. Shining Knight. This is the passive. Don't sleep on passives. Passives are important. This is a way for you to increase your armor for free. Put 1 point at least so you can unlock the other 2 at Adept. But max this one out later on when you don't have any extra points to use on. Armor Faith. This is where you start to be based off as an Int Paladin. Int Paladin is what makes you super tanky. This is how I get all my defenses, or the armor. This is why I have 184 and I'm on 64%, which means I won't be taking much damage from enemies. on physical touch, of course. Mages still does a lot of damage on you, especially if you're getting, lightning or poison or any kinds of elemental. You're gonna take a lot of damage. Be careful. Increase your movement speed and reduce stamina cost. So, like I said earlier, dexterity is not something you will be spending on unless it's from the gear. Stats wise, you don't spend on dexterity, you will spend it on this one instead. Whenever you feel like you want to spam your charge more often, don't be in a rush, enjoy the game, take it at your own pace. But if you do like to do the shield charge through the enemies and throw hammers or swing, this one is really, really important for it because it reduces the stamina cost by 40%. You also increase your movement speed. You want to be speedy, this is a great trait or passive upgrade. Now, towering strength, this one will be good for you if you need that extra strength for, let's say, you already spent all your stats points, you needed some extra to equip some gear, go for towering strength, at least level 1 in my opinion. So the reason why you want to do this is because you are starting to notice, oh, I don't have much health, or I'm spending a lot on intelligence, but it's not giving me anything back because I'm only using it for lay on hands, and then there's a cooldown on it, and then there's righteous hammer, and then there's a cooldown on it. I'm never gonna be out of mana. So the time you want to spend on strength is to increase your health. I find that spending skill points on it is so much easier to gain free stats basically. So every time I put my points on the stats, it's going to be 1 strength for 2 health, and that's with 1 point, and this is literally 1 skill point for 5, and then it goes up to 15 and 30. It gives you a lot for the amount of skill points you spend on this. Not something you would max out immediately. This is something you can avoid until later. This one though, Superb Constitution, the reason why I told you to unlock this one at least level 1 is to get this one. This will be something you'll be facing at mid-level, where you have areas that does a lot of poison on you. This will help you and obviously increases your health. Now this is more than 1 strength. This is quite a lot of health. 100 health equals roughly, what was it? It equals to 50 strength. So maxing this one out is literally 50 strength on your character plus some poison resistance. Really good skill to be tanky and survival. Battle Banner. When you get expert, I would not recommend getting Battle Banner first. I would recommend getting Inner Flame first, at least level 1, and then max out Flaming Wrath. The reason for this is because you do want to have the fire damage, which means there's more procs to your spells that you do. Your main spell is obviously Righteous Hammer, and then obviously having this later on will make you do more damage, obviously, with your Inner Flame. It's mainly for this proc in general, because it discharges a blast of flame. This is the only time you would have a flame damage, otherwise it's going to be based off your lightning. But the reason why you want to max out Inner Flame is because, well, the proc and for the fire resistance. So you don't have to worry too much about, taking fire damage and be worried about, oh, I need specific gear with fire resistance. You can have this. It's enough. Now for the healing flames, skip this. You don't need life leech. You have pots. You only use HP pots, by the way. MP pots, it's not something you will be using due to you having spent all your points into intelligence. You're gonna have a lot of high mana regen. You only need health when you need the oh shit button, and you have 3 of them now, which is really, really helpful. You're not gonna die unless you misclick your pot, or you don't know if they're on cooldown. Your lay on hands is on cooldown. There's no reason for you to rely on life leech with spells. Lawbringer, ignore it. You're not blocking. Pillar of Light. I tried to use this. It was based off physical and fire damage. I thought it might work for Inner Flames, but it was not as I expected. It might be cool if you use it with Heaven's Wrath, because it turns it into lightning damage instead of fire, and then it becomes like an AoE dot on the floor. But I really feel like enemies would be in that AoE because you're just wrecking everything with Righteous Hammer, and it penetrates enemies in range instead of relying on enemies to be on the same spot for a long time. You're kiting the enemies, you're not gonna be, you know, standing in the same spot, because that's a way for you to just die immediately when you're having tons of enemies on you. Blessed Champion. Now this is the skill I would recommend to get as soon as possible when you reach Master. This will enable you to have the unlimited power, as I say. You want to spend at least level 1 on Blessed Champions, so it's going to be only on 5-second duration. And then afterwards, you want to go for the Champion's Hammer. Champion's Hammer is what enables you to do the spamming part with the Righteous Hammer. And obviously, maxing this one out is 100% cast speed. As it says here, it increases your cast speed and not your attack speed. So on the Battle Banner, as I forgot to mention about, the Battle Banner increases your attack speed, which doesn't help you at all. But it does help for your party if you're playing in a group. If they're melee or physical that uses attack speed, this will increase and help for them. But the damage is what you're after if you're maxing this one out. Obviously, you can go for the Banner of Protection for damage reduction when you're inside of it, because you are going to be inside your banner AoE radius. And then this is the skill that you want to max out. If you have at least one on the banner, you max this one out for yourself or for your casters in your group. So this will increase your casting speed and reduces the mana cost, so you can spam more Righteous Hammer. Combine that with Champion's Hammer, which increases your casting speed as well on your hammer. But it does increase the cooldown of this buff. It's okay. It could have matched up, 30 seconds with the Battle Banner, but I feel like this is your bread and butter. It's your main buff. So 15 seconds is not an issue. You can kite around. You can do other things. Just chuck normal Righteous Hammer in the meantime. And obviously maxing this one out will increase your attributes. And obviously it's gonna give you immunity to stun and slow, which is helpful if you don't want to be CC'd. But the only downside with this build entirely is if you get silenced. There's enemies that silences you, you're fucked. So try to avoid silence AoEs on the floor, or traps, or whatever you should call it, and you should be fine. Crusader, your second or last passive, I would say, to max out. This one will increase obviously your damage per stack. 20 is the max. Maxing this out is 4% times 20. You will get 80% more damage. I hope I did my math right, yes. And the movement speed, you get 20% movement speed per stack. You can get this easily. This says each time but you kill enemies. I wouldn't max it out immediately, just put 1 point so you have the other skills unlocked. This one is obviously scoring hits on bosses and superior enemies, aka elites and such. Easy way to gain stacks. But this is also another way to gain stacks, is by doing damage. If you do a certain amount of damage, you will proc this every single time, and then afterwards max this Crusader main skill or main passive, and you will have max stacks easily. So I'm just 37, max level is 50. I can still level up, let's say, my lay on hands. I can max out the Battle Banner of Protection for maximum defense. What can I do? I won't be needing the Champion of Truth, and the reason for that is its attack crit chance. Like I said earlier, we have cast speed. If it was spell crit chance, I would pick this, but this is not worth it. It's gonna cost me more for nothing. The thing I can think of that's remaining for the build, I'll have to try it out when I reach 50, if I ever plan to play furthermore after finishing the game. I still haven't finished it. I think I'm at the very end of the game. The only thing I can think of is to max out the Righteous Hammer if you feel confident enough with your intelligence or with your mana that you can spam it at max level. Then it will increase your output DPS, and maybe your heal if you feel like you want to OCD this and have max heal. You can also go for, let's see if we have anything. None of these are worth it because it's, well, maybe because it's based off physical damage, right, on your Righteous Hammer, but I wouldn't put these as my main focus because it's based off strength on this one, and this one is just increased damage, but I really rely on this myself. It's up to you. Shield charge is not worth it. Healing flames, if you have nothing else to do, it's gonna cost you a bit more though. And blocking is not worth it. Pillar might be interesting if you want to go with a pure lightning build. This could be your filler in between, might be interesting. But I feel like 13 levels might be not enough. We'll see. Yeah, the last one would be Guardian Angel. That's your, you know, oh shit, I happened to die but I got saved kind of button or passive. It's only for 4 seconds. It's 80-second cooldown. The reason why I didn't pick this is because if you're relying on this for the damage, you have to wait every 80 seconds for it to proc. And it's kind of meh. And the reason why I said it's proccing for this skill, and you're wondering why would this matter for my damage, is because of the last one, Wrathful Avenger. So whenever you proc the Guardian Angel and you have this on for 4 seconds only, you get 200 or 300% damage increase. I don't think it's worth it because you're relying on dying basically, and it's not a passive or sustained DPS basically. This is more a bursty burst, relying on you not healing yourself at all. Might be good for that short burst, but for a normal burst every 30 seconds or 45 seconds, going without it is good enough in my opinion. But we'll see. I don't think this is something you would need. Anyways, here's the regular hammer every 1.1 second because I have certain passives, and obviously I also have spell speed on my gear, so it can be slower, but it's good enough as you kite the enemies, and this does a lot of damage. Now with the buffs, banner and the Blessed Champion, this is what it looks like. This is why you need a lot of intelligence, and you're spamming this on top of the enemy. And this happens every 45 seconds. You can wait a bit. Having cooldown reduction will help you too. My banner is ready. My Blessed Champion is ready. Back to throwing. And as you can see, my MP has gone down quite a lot. This is your, you know, the downtime to recover your MP. And as you can see, my MP is at 529. It slowly fills up while you're waiting for your buffs. This is the dash speed. If you max this one out, it's every 1 second. Really helpful. And then the dash damage, 355, based off my total armor. Let's pull multiple enemies. You'll see why this is helpful. You have a lot of enemies here. Dash through them, and they're all gonna take the damage. Helpful when you want to clear while you're throwing one hammer at a time, waiting for your burst. Simple. So for the damage when it comes to hammer, I think you might have seen it already. It does a lot, as you can see. I just threw one. I know these are weak enemies, but still. You can see the numbers, they're doing a lot of damage. Not sure if the enemies here got reset. Let's pull all the enemies. Buffing up. And that's how it would look like if you've cleared out all the enemies. So that's my build. I'm not sure if there's any other builds out there that you can rely on. I find that this is the build that you would go for if you ever felt like you want to go for the Blessed Champion buff. With the Champion's Hammer, this is the way I imagine it to be. You're super tanky, you don't take any damage. I know these are low level enemies, but still, you don't take that much damage. It's all based off on, you know, your stats as well on your gear. So make sure to have decent amount of gear that gives you you know, armor, mana, spell cast speed, reduction on the cooldown, maybe some more damage on the enemies like elites or superior. Won't help for bosses, but you know, it's something. But then again, they are a lot of uniques, or I don't know if you would call these legendaries, but they can be really helpful for you to be using. Right now I'm using these, which is what I prefer at the moment. I haven't found anything better, and obviously I have 2 of these because of group play. Anyways, this is my build. I'm sorry if it is a long video. I'll make a short one just going through showing each skill while being quiet. So if you don't feel like my commentary is something you want to hear for a long video, go watch my other video. Thank you very much, and enjoy Hammerwatch 2.